Hi, and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today, where I'll be covering the disorganized attachment style and neurodivergence and how they intersect in terms of connection, communication, and emotions. Let me introduce myself. I'm Corey. I'm an integrated attachment coach, which basically means I specialize in using the principles of integrated attachment theory to help clients understand and heal their attachment patterns, which leads to healthier and happier relationships. Integrated attachment theory focuses on attachment styles such as secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized attachment, exploring the subconscious mind and its programming, understanding individual needs, developing communication skills, and emotional regulation. My focus is on empowering neurodivergent individuals who may struggle with the limitations of a disorganized or fearful avoidant attachment style. I work with proven tools rooted in neurobiology that help to enhance the quality of life and cultivate deeply satisfying relationships so people can live with joy, purpose, and fulfillment. Let's start by briefly going over the objectives of today's presentation. So, first off, I'll be defining the disorganized attachment style so you can understand the characteristics and emotional challenges faced by those who have this attachment type, including the push-pull dynamic in relationships. Then we'll move into exploring neurodivergence, where we'll learn a bit about neurodiversity, including about autism, ADHD, and other forms of neurodivergent experiences, and how these can influence social interactions and emotional responses. After that, we'll get into the commonalities and connections between these two frameworks by discovering the overlapping traits and challenges faced by individuals with disorganized attachment and neurodivergence, including difficulties with trust, emotional regulation, and maintaining meaningful connections. Then, toward the end, we'll cover some practical strategies where hopefully you'll gain valuable insights and strategies for fostering healthier relationships, enhancing communication, and promoting emotional resilience for those navigating these complexities. I hope that sounds good to everyone. So, since not everyone is familiar with attachment theory, I want to talk a little bit about the basics just so we have a baseline to refer to as we get a bit deeper in the later slides. An attachment style is the subconscious set of rules that we have for love and connection. Rules can be in the form of beliefs we have, needs we have, what we expect in relationships, how we communicate, and how boundaries are set or not set with others. We are not born with an attachment style. It happens through conditioning and the way that neuroplasticity affects our subconscious minds. This means we can recondition our attachment style to become more secure so we can have thriving relationships in all areas of our lives. The biggest limiting beliefs that we take on from our childhood are around who we are and what relationships look like. This also shapes the relationship that we have to ourselves, which affects everything else in our reality. The experiences we have in the first 2 years of our lives are stored in our subconscious mind, and this shapes our entire life unless we actually do the work to change it. But the good news is that you can, and there are 4 different attachment styles. So, secure attachment is characterized by healthy, trusting relationships. This is the one that we all strive for. And if you aren't there, no worries. You can actually get here with the right tools, and one of which I'll share with you guys today. Then we have the anxious, preoccupied attachment style, which tends to exhibit a high need for closeness and a fear of abandonment. And you're not alone if this one sounds familiar, and the first step to fixing this is recognizing this. Then we have the dismissive avoidant attachment style, which is characterized by a fear of intimacy and prioritizing independence. Now, these tendencies are actually a protective response and they can be unlearned. Then we have the fearful avoidant or disorganized attachment style, where there is both a fear of intimacy and abandonment, which creates a push-pull dynamic in relationships. This one is a bit more complicated, but it can be transformed with the right effort and tools. And I know this well as someone who is a recovering fearful avoidant, so I'm with you on this one. Understanding your attachment style can help you. You'll experience peace of mind like you haven't had before, and your relationships will thank you. Today, we'll cover the basics around the disorganized attachment style as it relates to neurodivergence. Disorganized attachment style is a pattern of attachment that develops typically in childhood, when a caregiver is both a source of safety and a source of fear. This inconsistency in caregiving, where a child may experience neglect or erratic responses from their caregiver, leads to confusion and anxiety about relationships. As a result, children with disorganized attachment grow up not knowing how to respond to emotional cues in a predictable way, and this pattern often carries into adulthood, influencing romantic relationships, friendships, and emotional regulation. Some of the key characteristics of disorganized attachment include the following. First up, we have a fear of intimacy and connection. Individuals with disorganized attachment often desire closeness and intimacy, while at the same time fearing it due to past experiences of trauma or inconsistent caregiving. This creates a push-pull dynamic in relationships where they seek reassurance but then withdraw when it feels too close. For example, Ben and Sophie have been dating for a few months. Ben, who has the disorganized attachment style, is afraid of getting too close to Sophie because of past abandonment issues. When Sophie talks about their future together or asks for more emotional closeness, Ben feels a sense of panic. He begins to withdraw emotionally, even though deep down he longs to connect with her. This causes tension between them, as Sophie is unsure why Ben suddenly pulls back after expressing love and affection. Then we have confusion and mixed signals. People with this attachment style may send mixed signals in relationships, sometimes being needy and seeking closeness, and then at other times becoming distant or rejecting intimacy out of fear. This behavior stems from internal conflict, as they both want and fear emotional connection. For example, Lucy has a longtime friend, Mike, with whom she shares a lot of personal stories. However, Lucy often flips between being very open with Mike one moment, sharing deep emotions, and then suddenly becoming withdrawn or even cold, retreating from conversations when Mike expresses concern. Mike struggles to understand why Lucy switches between being emotionally available and then shutting him out, not realizing that it's actually her internal conflict between wanting closeness and fearing it. Difficulty trusting others. Due to a history of inconsistency, people with disorganized attachment often struggle with trusting others. They may find it difficult to rely on people for emotional support and may even sabotage relationships because of fear of betrayal or abandonment, and this often isn't even a conscious response. So an example here is Chris, who grew up in a home where his emotional needs were often ignored. He has a deep-seated fear of being betrayed or abandoned. When his colleague Sarah offers to help him on a project, Chris feels conflicted. Although Sarah has proven to be reliable, Chris's automatic response is to doubt her intentions. He wonders if she's just being nice to him for personal gain or if she's ultimately going to let him down. Despite Sarah's consistent support, Chris's inability to trust her leads him to reject her help, and he attempts to manage the project alone, even though it causes him unnecessary stress. Then we have emotional dysregulation. Emotional responses can be intense and hard to control. Individuals with disorganized attachment might react impulsively, experiencing swings between emotional extremes like extreme anxiety or anger, and feeling overwhelmed by their emotions. For example, Jack, who has a disorganized attachment, gets into an argument with his partner Emma over a minor issue. Emma innocently asks Jack why he hasn't done something he promised to do. Jack, feeling overwhelmed by a mix of shame and anger, reacts explosively. His emotional response is disproportionate to the situation. He raises his voice, accusing Emma of not trusting him. Later, Jack regrets his outburst and feels guilt, but in the moment, the emotional dysregulation made it impossible for him to control his reactions. Heightened sensitivity to rejection. Because of past experiences with unreliable caregivers, individuals with this attachment style are particularly sensitive to signs of rejection or abandonment. They may misinterpret neutral or ambiguous actions as a sign of emotional withdrawal. For example, Carlos, a young adult with this attachment style, receives a text from his best friend Maya saying she has to cancel plans. Carlos, instead of understanding the situation, feels a surge of panic. He misinterprets the cancellation as a sign that Maya no longer values their friendship, and he worries that she might be distancing herself emotionally. His heightened sensitivity causes him to respond in an emotionally charged way, texting Maya to ask if she's upset with him. Inconsistent behavioral responses. People with this attachment style often have behavior that appears erratic or unpredictable. For instance, they might react positively to affection one moment and then suddenly shut down or pull away the next, which creates confusion for those around them. For example, Natalie, who has this attachment, experiences a moment of emotional overwhelm during a quiet evening with her partner Luke. At first, Natalie welcomes Luke's closeness, holding his hand and sharing personal thoughts. However, as Luke moves closer and starts to offer comfort, Natalie suddenly pulls away, feeling suffocated. She can't even explain why she's doing this, but the need for emotional space overwhelms her at that moment, which leaves Luke confused, wondering if he said something wrong or if Natalie no longer wants to be close. I hope these examples are resonating. So let's move into how this can impact us in adulthood. The disorganized attachment style can create challenges in adult romantic relationships, friendships, and work environments. Individuals may push people away while desperately seeking connection, which leads to a cycle of emotional chaos. They may also struggle with feelings of inadequacy, self-doubt, and a low sense of self-worth stemming from their early childhood attachment experiences. And emotional regulation can be a significant issue, often resulting in high levels of anxiety, anger, or sadness. So let's get a little deeper into some of the emotional challenges faced by those with disorganized attachment. First up, we have the fear of rejection. This fear often leads to self-sabotage in relationships. People may act out of fear by avoiding emotional closeness or by testing their partner's love. For example, Mia and Tom have been dating for a few months. Mia, who has a disorganized attachment style, is deeply afraid of being rejected or abandoned, stemming from her childhood experiences of inconsistency with her caregivers. When Tom shows affection or talks about a future together, Mia's anxiety spikes. She immediately starts thinking, what if he gets bored of me? Or what if he leaves me as soon as he gets too close? Then, out of fear, Mia begins to pull away from Tom, distancing herself emotionally and withdrawing from communication. She becomes distant during intimate moments, avoiding his calls or texts. Sometimes she even picks fights or acts cold, hoping that Tom will show that he truly cares by fighting for her. Ultimately, though, her fear of being rejected makes her test Tom's love by creating distance even though deep down she actually craves connection. And this leaves Tom confused, questioning why Mia is suddenly distant or rejecting him when she had previously shown affection. Another common challenge is confusion about self-worth. Because they grew up in an unpredictable environment, individuals with disorganized attachment might struggle with self-esteem, leading them to feel unworthy of love or emotional connection. For example, Rachel has been in a long-term relationship with her partner Ben. Despite Ben's consistent love and care, Rachel often feels like she doesn't deserve it. Growing up in a household where emotional needs were either ignored or sporadically met, Rachel has internalized the belief that love is unreliable and that she isn't worthy of it. Whenever Ben expresses affection, Rachel tends to dismiss it, often brushing it off or responding negatively. Then one evening, after Ben compliments Rachel on her appearance, she immediately feels uncomfortable and brushes it off with a sarcastic remark, saying something like, "Well, I don't think I'm that great, but whatever." Her response actually isn't out of malice. It's because she genuinely believes that she doesn't deserve his compliments. She may even feel irritated or upset by his kind words, unsure of how to accept the love without feeling undeserving. This struggle with self-worth often leaves Rachel distant or self-critical, even in the face of love and support. There's often also a difficulty of trusting others. Deep-rooted fears about abandonment and betrayal can make it hard to trust even people who are reliable and consistent. For example, Jake is a college student who has experienced numerous instances of abandonment and neglect in his childhood, leading him to develop a deep-rooted fear of being betrayed or rejected. He is currently dating Emily, who has been nothing but consistent and reliable. Despite her efforts to build a trusting relationship, Jake has trouble believing she won't leave him, especially when she doesn't immediately respond to his texts or calls. Then one weekend, Emily goes on a short trip with her friends. During the trip, she doesn't text Jake as frequently as she normally does, and this triggers his insecurities. Jake becomes paranoid, thinking she's probably lost interest in me or she's forgetting about me. He starts overthinking every moment where Emily isn't available, misinterpreting her silence as a sign of abandonment. Jake struggles to trust that Emily isn't pulling away intentionally, despite all evidence pointing to her being a caring and reliable partner. To cope with his anxiety, Jake starts questioning Emily's feelings for him and even confronts her with accusatory questions, which creates a lot of tension in their relationship. Do any of these emotional challenges sound familiar? I sure hope that it's very relatable, and if you do, I'd love to hear more, so feel free to pop a comment down below. All right, so next up, let's talk a bit about neurodiversity. This encompasses a spectrum of neurological variations, including autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and others, and they're all variations of the human brain. Instead of seeing these traits as disorders that need to be fixed, neurodiversity embraces them as part of human diversity, with both challenges and strengths. These differences manifest in various ways, including sensory processing, emotional reactivity, and communication styles. Individuals with neurodivergent traits may encounter challenges with social cues, understanding emotions, or expressing their needs. This can affect how they build trust and connect with others, potentially leading to misinterpretations and communication breakdowns. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with these, but a few key forms of neurodivergence include autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, which can be characterized by challenges around social communication and behavior, often involving sensory sensitivities, difficulty reading social cues, and challenges in understanding or expressing emotions. Individuals with autism might struggle with eye contact, reading nonverbal cues like body language or tone of voice, and expressing their needs or emotions in ways that others expect or understand. Someone with autism might miss subtle social signs that others interpret as cues for intimacy, like a partner's sigh or smile. They may also find it challenging to express when they're upset, potentially leading to feelings of isolation. Then we have attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or ADHD, which can involve issues with attention, impulse control, and hyperactivity. Emotional dysregulation is also common, with individuals experiencing difficulty managing frustration, excitement, or sadness. People with ADHD might be forgetful, overly talkative, or easily distracted. They may interrupt others in conversations or struggle to stay focused on the needs of a relationship. A person with ADHD might forget an important date or become easily distracted in a conversation, leading their partner to feel dismissed or unimportant, even if that was not the intention. Then there are other neurodivergent experiences, including dyslexia, dyspraxia, sensory processing disorder, and so on. These can also impact how individuals process information, relate to others, and manage their emotions. These conditions might make it more difficult for people to navigate complex social situations, leading to misunderstandings and emotional stress. And as someone who has autism and ADHD, I definitely know these confusions and complexities well, which is why I am so happy to be here sharing on this topic today. So thank you. Now, this is the magical part where I get to share a bit about how these two frameworks intersect. So, disorganized or fearful avoidant attachment style and neurodivergent individuals can share several common traits and experiences. Both individuals with this attachment style and neurodivergence often struggle with uncertainty in relationships. Disorganized attachment leads to a push-pull dynamic where emotional closeness is both desired and feared. Neurodivergent individuals may also face challenges with social cues and interactions, which can create confusion and discomfort in relationships. For example, someone with disorganized attachment may seek emotional closeness, but withdraw when it's reciprocated due to fear of vulnerability. This is compounded for neurodivergent individuals who may misinterpret their partner's actions or struggle with sensory overload, heightening their anxiety. Both groups often struggle to regulate intense emotions. Those with disorganized attachment may experience emotional swings between longing for connection and a fear of rejection. Neurodivergent individuals, such as those with ADHD or autism, might also find it difficult to recognize or express emotions appropriately. For instance, someone with disorganized attachment might become overwhelmed by anxiety when their partner is late to respond to a message, leading to impulsive reactions or withdrawal. Similarly, someone with ADHD might impulsively blurt out hurtful words, struggling to control emotional responses even though they regret it afterward. Disorganized attachment often results in conflicting behaviors, as individuals crave connection but fear rejection. Neurodivergent individuals may also display atypical social behaviors or responses, leading to confusion in relationships. A person with disorganized attachment might initiate contact for reassurance, but then withdraw when their partner responds warmly, fearing the intimacy will lead to rejection. If they also have autism, their partner might misinterpret their emotional retreat as disinterest, when it's actually a protective response to overwhelming emotions. Disorganized attachment is rooted in early trauma or inconsistent caregiving, leading to a heightened sensitivity in relationships. Neurodivergent individuals may also have experienced social isolation or misunderstanding, contributing to emotional sensitivity. For example, a person with disorganized attachment might react with extreme anxiety when their partner doesn't quickly respond to a message, making them fear abandonment. If they have ADHD, Impulsivity can amplify their emotional response, misinterpreting a simple delay as a sign of rejection. Both disorganized attachment and neurodivergent traits, such as past experiences of betrayal or social misunderstanding, can make it difficult to trust others. Individuals with disorganized attachment struggle with consistency in relationships, while neurodivergent individuals might misinterpret behavior due to difficulties with social cues. For instance, someone with disorganized attachment might struggle to trust their partner because of past neglect, while simultaneously pushing them away. If the person also has ADHD, forgetfulness might lead others to misinterpret their behavior as irresponsibility, reinforcing their fear of rejection and trust issues. Both groups often experience anxiety in social settings. Disorganized attachment leads to fears of abandonment, while neurodivergent individuals may feel overwhelmed by social expectations or misunderstandings. A person with disorganized attachment might become anxious if their partner is distant, fearing abandonment. If they also have autism, they might struggle with understanding social cues, leading to increased anxiety about the situation and miscommunication. Clear and direct communication is crucial for both individuals with disorganized attachment and neurodivergent traits. Misunderstandings can heighten anxiety and exacerbate relationship difficulties. For example, someone with disorganized attachment might interpret vague communication as a sign that their partner doesn't care, and this can lead to anxiety. If they also have ADHD, they might struggle with processing subtle details, such as misinterpreting a statement like, "we need to talk," as a potential breakup when it's actually something really trivial. Both groups benefit from supportive, empathetic relationships that foster understanding and emotional resilience. Clear communication, patience, and acceptance are essential for helping individuals with disorganized attachment and neurodivergent traits build trust and coping strategies. A person with disorganized attachment might feel anxious if their partner spends time with friends, fearing abandonment. If they also have ADHD, forgetfulness might lead to further misunderstandings, amplifying anxiety. Supportive relationships can help break this cycle and promote emotional stability. So basically, to sum it up, both individuals with disorganized attachment and neurodivergent individuals benefit from relationships that prioritize clear communication, emotional understanding, and empathy. These supportive environments help foster trust, emotional resilience, and connection despite the challenges each group might face. So I hope you guys can see the overlap here. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how these overlaps have been notable in your own lives or the lives of others that you care about. So now that we have a better understanding of these two groups, let's talk a little bit about some strategies for fostering healthy relationships. So first off, choosing clear and direct communication can make a huge difference. Neurodivergent individuals often benefit from straightforward, unambiguous communication. People with disorganized attachment may find it helpful to explicitly state emotional needs rather than just hoping that their partner will know. So, for example, if you're feeling overwhelmed or anxious, it's much more helpful to tell your partner, "I need a little space right now, but I care about you and we'll talk soon." This clarifies the emotional state and allows space for the relationship to breathe. This can also include use of visual or written communication. For individuals with neurodivergence, visual cues or written notes can clarify intentions and reduce misunderstandings. For example, a person with ADHD might find it helpful if a partner writes down important details like plans or reminders instead of relying on verbal memory alone. And establishing clear boundaries is absolutely essential. People with disorganized attachment need predictability, which can help reduce anxiety. Neurodivergent individuals might need specific boundaries around sensory input or social interaction. For example, a neurodivergent person who is sensitive to touch may set boundaries around physical affection, requesting that their partner ask before hugging or touching them. Then we have promoting emotional resilience. So both groups here can benefit from mindfulness and grounding techniques to manage overwhelming emotions, such as deep breathing, grounding exercises, or mindfulness. For example, a person might practice grounding exercises, such as focusing on the 5 senses. So that example would be where you notice 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can smell, 2 things you can feel, and 1 thing that you can taste, because it helps to bring you back down to the present moment. And that can help reduce overwhelm in social situations to regain emotional stability. Although for some others that might be more sensitive to sensory things, maybe something like just having a breathing technique where you breathe in to the count of 4, hold it to the count of 4, exhale to the count of 4, and then hold the exhale for the count to 4. And do that for, let's say, even just 10 to 20 breaths can make such a huge difference in grounding yourself into the present moment. Gradually building trust through small, consistent actions can be key for those with disorganized attachment and neurodivergence. Predictable actions like showing up on time or following through on promises can help build trust and reduce anxiety. So for example, if you consistently check in with your partner about how they're feeling or offer reassurance when necessary, it helps them to feel safe. Therapy or coaching, especially with professionals who understand both attachment styles and neurodivergence, can offer personalized tools and strategies. So on that topic, if anyone is interested, I will have a couple of spaces opening up in mid-February for one-on-one clients, and in March, I'll be launching a group series where we will meet weekly to discuss challenges surrounding relationships and the practical strategies that can be used to resolve them. Please message me if you would like to be added to the waitlist for either of these, and as a thank you, you will receive a worksheet that takes you through the tool that I will share on the next section here. So by combining clear communication, respect for boundaries, and tools for emotional regulation, individuals with both disorganized attachment and neurodivergence can navigate their relationships in more meaningful and resilient ways. So now I'm going to share a tool with you that I use with my clients about communicating needs. The purpose of this exercise is to assist in understanding and practicing the necessary steps to communicate needs. We'll go through the following steps to practice new ways of communicating. So first off, you always want to try to express things in the positive first. How can I express my need in the positive to someone is what you want to ask yourself. So for example, I would love if we could XYZ versus you never XYZ with me. Which one do you think is going to get a better response? I know pointing out that you would really love something versus what you're not getting can a lot of times be more warmly received by people, and I know this from someone who's been asked to have needs met, as well as someone who has asked others to meet their needs. So, can you think of a strategy to see the need through, or remind your loved one if they forget after you have expressed this need? Because as a note, people are going to be imperfect sometimes, and we might have to remind others of our needs at times, even if we've already talked to them about it. If someone never tries at all, that's one thing, but if someone is doing the work and sometimes forgets, it's important to gently remind them and follow through with positive reinforcement when they return to meeting the need again. And of course, don't be afraid to change your approach, because different things will work differently for different people. We're all unique beings, and so the more that you can customize this to the person that you're interacting with, the better the results are going to be that you get. So remember that you can pre-write out a communication script as a jumping off point, and notice what is working best for you in your relationships. So, for example, is positive reinforcement really working for you? Or is it just consistent self expression? Is it lots of prefacing? Or is it minimal prefacing and being straight to the point? So maybe write out some strategies that will work best for your situation and the particular relationship that you're focused on improving. Now, as an example of prefacing, it can include things like, I love when you, and then fill in the blank, or I would really appreciate if we could, dot, dot, dot. So fill it in with stuff that's applicable to the relationship, because it can make that person feel more seen and understood. When you communicate well what's important to you, then others are more likely to be able to respond to it. So write what works best and what doesn't work at all, because each situation is going to be unique. Other examples of how to communicate could be things like, it's really important to me that we fill in the blank. It's really important to me that we start, fill in the blank, right? So there's a lot of different options here. You just need to look at what you need and the ways that you can positively communicate that to the people in your life. Because sometimes if we are not super clear on our own needs, it's really difficult for us to be able to communicate those to others. So taking the time to jot down some notes can be super helpful. And then when it comes to more sensitive communication, you can practice something called the sandwich approach. I find this is quite effective myself. I use it all the time. It's definitely one of my favorite ways to communicate things that are really important to me to the people in my life. So the sandwich approach involves communicating something positive, then expressing the need to the other person, and then finishing again with a positive point. So this could be something like, I really appreciated when you did that laundry for me the other day, but I really appreciated when you did the laundry for me the other day. If it's possible, another way that I would feel really supported would be if you could also rinse off your dishes before you put them in the dishwasher, because it's really important to me that we have a clean kitchen. It gives me a certain sense of peace of mind that I just don't have when the kitchen's dirty. But I did also notice that you swept the other day, and that really made me feel good, because then I didn't have to feel the stuff on the floor on my feet. Or however it is that you want to communicate. Again, each situation is going to be unique, so you want to be able to pick things that are genuine for the relationship that you're communicating about. So just a couple reminder points before we close out today. You want to try to paint the picture for yourself so that you can paint it for others. So what does it really look like to have this need met? The more specific you can be, the better the results are going to be when you ask somebody to meet that need. Because when you leave a lot of room for ambiguity, then the other person might think, helping more in the kitchen could mean maybe making food more often, whereas helping more in the kitchen to you might mean having the other person do dishes more often. So get really clear on what that need is, because it's a lot easier to express it to somebody when you know exactly what it is. And then you also want to ask yourself, what is the most direct or effective way to get this need met? What does it actually look like? So again, be specific. Don't leave room for people interpreting it their own way if you really want it done in a certain way. So, for example, if someone is looking for more affection in a relationship, you could ask the person specifically, could we hold hands more when we're on dates? Or maybe it's sitting closer together when you watch television. But if you can give the person that very clear idea of what it is that you're looking for, it makes a huge difference when it comes to communicating. And this brings me to the end of today's presentation. So first off, I'd like to thank all of you for sharing your time and energy with me today. So thank you so much. I hope all of you can walk away with a better understanding of this topic. So Yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts on this. And of course, if you have any questions, I would love to know your questions and I'll do my best to answer them. So feel free to pop in a comment down below or send me a like or something like that. I just would love to know if this is something that you guys find useful, because if it is, I would love to do more videos for this. So thank you so much again, beautiful people, and I hope you all have a spectacular day.